All right, good afternoon, Danny. So my presentation's over police brutality. I'm gonna send you my PowerPoint so you can watch it as I just talk to you about it. So my intro, police brutality or police violence is legally defined as a civil rights violation where officers exercise excessive force against a civilian. This includes physical or verbal harassment, physical or mental injury, property damage, and death. So one of the main topics about police brutality is that involvement with African Americans. So there's a variety of groups that have been subjected to police brutality in the United States, but the great majority of victims have been African American. In the estimation of most experts, a key factor explaining the predominance of African Americans among victims of police brutality is anti-black racism among members of mostly white police departments. So that means pretty much just departments like are predominantly white law enforcement officers. They hold, in some cases, a grudge or have some racism towards African Americans. Just after like years of dealing with them and just seeing all the crimes they commit, they can hold grudges for random African Americans that really haven't done anything wrong. We'll see later in PowerPoint the numbers of how that works. So black men and boys face the highest risk of being killed by police at a rate of 96 out of 100,000 deaths. In comparison with white men and boys, they face a lower rate of 39 per 100,000 deaths, even though the majority of the population is white. The blacks still have a higher death rate. So 96 deaths per 100,000 for blacks and 39 deaths per 100,000 of white. So here's just kind of, in my words, the whole situation, why it's kind of messed up right now. America's issue in today's culture is that the respect for law enforcement is extremely low. When the general public does not respect law enforcement does not respect the public. So when a law enforcement officer pulls over a civilian, and that civilian is like automatically against police and just being rude to them, the officer's not going to respect them back at all. They have a job to do, and when people just want to interfere with that and be difficult, it really is a difficult situation for the officer to be in. They know what they're supposed to do, but a lot of times people don't really respect them, even though they're the ones protecting them and putting their life in the line for those people, but some people just don't have common sense in that aspect. So this all results in two groups butting heads and not getting along. The percentage of corrupt law enforcement right now is less than 5%, but social media does not help the situation at all because for some reason people feed off that small percent of corrupt law enforcement but do not recognize all the amazing things law enforcement does for this country. So they really just think law enforcement is a joke, kind of, and they'll call them pigs or just flip them off for no reason just to like try to make a funny video or something. And that really wears on the law enforcement and does not want them to actually deal with these people. So when they do have to deal with them, they might have an attitude towards them which might come off as racist or just arrogant or whatever. So something is currently being put into play and already has been put into play, just not to every department yet, are body cameras, and this is an attempt to kind of help this whole situation of the butting heads so that there's just a clear evidence of what actually happened and it's not one person's word versus another person's word. So body-worn cameras were invented with the intention that they would help stop police brutality. They also were intended to help the officer in case it was their word against an individual accused of a crime. They're going to help with just situations where someone's lying and there'll be multiple officers there with actual proof, visual proof of what happened, and they're not going to have to deal with the petty my word versus your word and have to go to court for stuff like that. So body cams, potential benefits. So better transparency, just meaning everyone's going to know exactly what happened, how it happened, uh, and then be able to solve the case and punish the individual appropriately. Or if it is police brutality, the civilian will have the footage there too to show, hey, this cop was way out of line and I do not deserve this punishment. Another benefit would be increased civility, so just a better society in general where there's no corrupt law enforcement because they know if they do something wrong, it's on footage. And also kind of for the civilians, they know they're being recorded, so they're not gonna hopefully do anything out of line, but that obviously doesn't happen. Quicker resolution, so multiple police officers will be on the scene and they all have film of what's happening, and it's so much faster just to solve a case and know exactly what happened because it's all on footage, and multiple people can watch the film and decide what actually happened. So corroborating evidence, so the officers can combine what they have their notes, what they took, they can combine that with the footage, what they have, and it just makes the whole process a lot easier. And then training opportunities, people can watch the footage of what actually happens in real world situations and learn from it, learn from others' mistakes, and just understand what it actually takes to be a law enforcement officer and all the daily things you have to go through. So sidestep from the presentation, just want to share, so my uncle, he is a cop in New York, not in the city, but just like a little suburb. He actually retired 2 years ago because body cams were coming out. So that's kind of another aspect of it. Some cops do not want the body cameras because they're used to like the old way where they can be a little rougher on people and get away with it. But now with the body cameras, if they were just cursing someone out for no reason, they're gonna get in trouble. So it's kind of just a different aspect on that. So it's not a perfect system because some people aren't accepting it, but other cops love the system because they can just do what they're supposed to do and they know that it's all on camera, so they're not gonna get in trouble later for something they didn't do. So here's a pie chart. So for traffic stops, it shows white individuals are pulled over 60% of the time, where black people are only pulled over 26% of the time in the grand scheme of things. So that's just because the white population is so much bigger than the black population. And Hispanics are only 11.45%. But then you move over to vehicle searches, and you see the black portion is bigger than the white portion, even though the percentage is so low in the population. That just shows kind of, it could be racism, it could be African Americans tend to cause more crime, or it could just be the cop had a bad day and he saw a black guy and he just wants to search him because he thinks he's going to find something. So there's a lot of different things that go into those numbers. And then you see arrests, and the black portion is higher than everything else, over half. So that's kind of shows how the system's kind of messed up right now. The population that's way lower than the white population should not be arrested more than the white population. So something there is definitely not right, whether it's police brutality or just whatever. Here's a video. I think it kind of portrays police brutality in a quick way.
Parents and their two daughters, 1 and 4 years old, held at gunpoint. Major differences emerging between the police.
You can just watch this through the PowerPoint, but.
So what started this confrontation? Here's NBC's Zachary Keish with more.
You're watching cops in Phoenix threaten Aisha Harper, a 24-year-old pregnant woman with her 2 young children by her side. Police later stated in their report that they feared she was reaching for a weapon. This incident unfolding after police received a report of a stolen doll from a nearby dollar store. The video starts after the family pulls up at their babysitting
Okay, so pretty much right there is all I need to see. It's not really that big of a situation. I don't think the cops need to go to that extent of force to control the situation. But you never know, like, what's happening behind the cameras. This is kind of media escalating something and making it seem like it's police brutality, but you really don't know what was going through those cops' heads at that time. You don't know if they felt that it was actually a dangerous situation. In my opinion, I don't think they had to go to this extent. The lady was pregnant and had 2 kids, and they're asking her to put her hands up and freeze or whatever. But she had a baby in her hand, and she's screaming, like, "Don't do this to me," whatever. And then here, when they had that black individual kick his legs out, I mean, he wasn't really doing anything that bad, and they kind of went to the next level without needing to. But I almost always take the police officer's side, because doing the job is just so hard, and you never know, like, the feeling they had at that specific time. And they've been through the training, they know, like, how to act when and what to do in certain situations. So this video just kind of is a good representation of how media tries to blow stuff up, but it does look pretty bad. So I understand how some people think law enforcement is corrupt, but this is also in that, if it is corrupt, it's in that low 5% of officers that are corrupt. So it's hard to really judge just off one video. So that's my last slide. These are my sources. Thanks for watching. Hope you're staying healthy, Danny.